Hi, I'm the woke centrist, and I would like to talk to you about why somebody would want to be a centrist, because believe me, it's hard. If I had to hazard a guess, I would say the most centrists actually don't like being centrists. I know I don't like being one. If I had it my way, there would be a team that I could go join, and it would be a very good team, and they would have all of the right answers, and they would be very honest, and they'd be very forthcoming, and they would not be filled with BS or hidden agendas, or they would not mislead people. And I could trust them, and they could be trusted by all, and I'd go join that team, and then I wouldn't have to use my brain much anymore. I could just kind of unplug from paying attention to all the bad things going on in the world, and I could just vote with my team. If my team decides to protest, I could go protest with them. If my team decides to donate to some cause, I'll go donate. And life will be easy. I'll vote, donate, protest. I will tweet, post on Facebook, whatever it takes, right? Maybe even make some memes, right? That's what I want. But unfortunately, the reality of the way the world works is I don't get that, all right? That's not an option for me. And again, why people would be a centrist, why I'm a centrist, and why I believe others would be a centrist is because it comes down to you want to be honest and you want to do what's right. And there's no team out there that is consistently honest and consistently doing what's right. And it's a problem. The right wing and the left wing, and even all the stuff in between, nobody is right all the time. Nobody has the right answers all the time. Nobody has the right solutions all the time. And that's the thing. You have to care about those things, all right? So the problem is there's not one team that has all of the right answers all the time. You have to be a la carte, okay? Sometimes conservatives get things right. Sometimes liberals get things right. Sometimes even the far left or far right wackadoodle, 1 out of 30 times they might actually get something right. And so you have to be able to pick and choose the right solutions for the right problems, all right? Sometimes you want the federal government to really get involved. Sometimes you want the federal government to stay out. When it comes to taxes, you don't want to tax people to death, but you do need to collect a certain amount of taxes. It's highly unrealistic to run a superpower, let alone the world's greatest superpower, without taxing anybody, okay? You have to have taxes, but at the same time, if you tax incorrectly, if you tax the wrong people, if you tax the wrong amount, if you don't offer the right incentives, then you can cause problems in that regard. And you have to be a smart person who, and again, I wish I had a team, right? I wish there was a team of smart people who would make these right decisions all the time, but they don't exist, all right? The right wing and the left wing, neither one of them are making appropriate choices all the time. And the other thing is they're not honest. Oh my goodness. Even when they're right, even when Republicans and Democrats are right, they still lie. They feel like they have to lie to sell whatever it is they're pushing. Okay. And they lie to everybody. They lie to their enemies. And then at the same time, they lie to their friends. If you value having the correct solution, and if you value honesty, and if you value not having a biased agenda, then you find yourself being a centrist, because you find yourself not necessarily supporting everybody, but being disappointed in everybody. All right. Here's the thing. I believe that in the 21st century, we are evolving. We have more information than we ever had before. I think in the past, it made sense for you to pick a party, whether it was the I don't know if I want to say liberals and conservatives, or if I want to say Democrats and Republicans, but I think it made sense to pick a party and stick with the party and just kind of go with all their solutions, because we did not used to have as much information as we do now. I'm serious. I am of an age, I grew up at the tail end of the old world. I'm Generation X. I am a bridge in between how things used to be and how things currently are, okay? Cell phones came up during my childhood and school age years. Things like cell phones, pagers, the internet, then broadband internet, and then mobile devices capable of streaming broadband internet. I was there for all of it. During my childhood, like elementary school, Cordless phones were not even that prolific in this country. I don't know if I'm using the word prolific correctly here, but most people had a telephone that they'd actually had for decades. I kid you not. There used to be these tan phones from Bell, these little tan phones, and they had the buttons on them, and they lasted forever. Or I knew people that had the phones went brrr, brrr, the literally dial-up phones. So the rotary dial. So things have changed. All right, the 21st century is very different. All right, a world event can happen, whether there can be an earthquake or an assassination or nuclear missile tests. There can be a thing that happens and everybody on the planet can find out within 3 minutes of it happening. Actually, people can find out instantly if it's being periscoped. Not to plug Periscope, but a live streaming service of some sort. People can find out something that happens on the other half of the planet instantly. And even when I was growing up in the 1980s, that was not an option. We were not going to find out things instantly. If there was not a news crew with a live feed broadcasting at the moment that the newsworthy event happened, then no, the option of knowing instantly, everybody on the planet knowing instantly, that option was not there. Things are different now. Then it's not just about instantaneous news capture, even analysis of the news. If I want to, I can go a la carte, pick from hundreds of news analysts and listen to their take on things. And there are news analysts of all persuasions. You have libertarian, you have socialist, you have communist, you have evangelical, you have war hawk conservatives, usually of the Republican Party, obviously. You have classic liberals, you have, I think I already said socialists and communists, but you get the idea. And there are moderates, there are people who are hated by everybody. I don't know if they're 100% centrist, and that's its own thing. What's the difference between a moderate and a centrist? I'm not sure if it's just semantics at this point, but you have people who are center right and center left. You have people who claim to be conservatives, but they will espouse left-wing talking points and then they'll be skewered for it. And then you have people who are liberals or left-wingers or center left or what have you, and they'll say something conservative and they'll get skewered for that. So you can see an event the instant it happens, or video of it within minutes of it happening, or if there's no video, you can at least hear about it happening within minutes of it happening, and you can get analysis, same day analysis, where some expert who knows quite a bit on the topic can walk you through it a little bit. We have access to more information than we have ever had before. And as a result of that, I think it almost forces you, once you are aware of this, I think it forces you to be a centrist. I mean, cards on the table, I've always been center right throughout my life. I used to be pro-abortion. I know that's going to make a lot of people upset, but you have to understand I was young. Right now, I'm not necessarily pro or against abortion. It goes back to the centrist thing. Being for abortion, that's kind of a left-wing thing, but I was also extremely pro-military intervention. I was all for invading Iraq when I was a young man. And to be honest with you, I probably did not know enough about the subject to be so pro-war at the time, but I was a war hawk. But because I have access to knowledge, I have access to analysis, I have access to information, I have access to facts, I've been able to pinpoint instances where, okay, maybe I was wrong about this, I was wrong about that. And then that got me thinking, what else was I wrong about? There used to be a spaghetti sauce commercial. I'm not sure if it was Prego or Ragu, but there used to be a spaghetti sauce commercial where there was a woman and she was like, oh, well, I was wrong about spaghetti sauce. What else could I be wrong about? And she would poof, and it showed her in the 1980s, and she was wearing 1980s attire. And there's a whole joke around that. But the thing is, I actually related to that commercial because around the time that advertisement came out, I was kind of going through this thing where I actually worked myself backwards throughout my entire life and started breaking down, where have I been wrong? Because here's the thing. I feel like there is a moral imperative to be right about these things. And there's information now. Again, in the 1980s and the 1990s, all this information did not exist. You had to kind of go with the tribal wisdom of whatever party you most related to. I feel like you had to back then. We didn't have the resources that we have now. But now, I almost feel like if you're not a centrist, you're the problem. And I say that sounds a little bit bitter. That sounds a little bit maybe angsty. But the thing is, the centrists are getting just destroyed by people on the left and the right. Charlottesville is what made me feel like I really need to start talking about these things. I'm not necessarily one to want to sit in front of a camera and talk about these things, but that's kind of what I came up with. We'll see if that was a good choice or not. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But Charlottesville really frustrated me because you had people saying that if you thought that both parties, and believe me, both parties were awful. Antifa is a terrible organization. You cannot defend Antifa. You are out of your mind. I don't care how you convince yourself that Antifa is a good group, they're not. And then Nazis are awful. We know Nazis are awful. But if you would say, hey, wait a minute, these Antifa cats, they're not very good. Somehow you were a Nazi for saying that. And that's the point where I'm like, enough is enough, all right? In my opinion, it is recklessly immoral or amoral. It is wrong on every level if you're not a centrist at this point. Once you pay attention to enough information to realize that the Nazis are wrong, Antifa's wrong, there is no real reason to support either one. And there's especially no reason to go march and protest supporting either one. All right, to fight with your coworkers, your families, your friends, supporting either one. You can't. All right, if you are informing yourself and really knowing what groups do, a lot of you probably don't know what Antifa does because for some reason our news media is not super interested in covering it. But trust me, the information's out there. I found it. Others have found it. There's a great number of people that have found it. And I think finally the centrists held their ground and spoke up, saying that, look, man, you know both sides in Charlottesville were wrong. And I think that's why we started to see the conversation change a little bit. Man, it was really hard. It was incredibly hard for 5 or 6, 7 days to be a centrist and say, hey, they're both wrong. All right. By the way, Donald Trump handled things quite poorly. I'm not going to defend him by any means. But the idea that you can't say that both sides were wrong, that's a problem because they were. So once you realize that both sides are wrong, and once you realize that everybody's lying to you, once you realize, I haven't even talked about the news media yet, but once you realize that the news media is trying to manipulate you, you find yourself, if you care about being right, and if you care about honesty, you find yourself becoming a centrist. You have to. There is no other answer. There's none. When you see that Republicans are lying, Democrats are lying, Fox News is lying, CNN is lying, MSNBC is lying, all of the newspapers are lying, most of the bloggers are lying, you can't pick those teams. You can't say, oh, I'm over here with the liars. Sounds good. These are my people. You can't do that. You can't. So you find yourself, you know what it feels like? It feels like centrists really are just a bunch of isolated people on islands waving their hands in the air and just yelling from their island to another island, hoping that people hear them and going crazy. All right. But I'm telling you, the information exists. Your smartphone, all right? And these smartphones give you a ton of information between podcasts and videos and vlogs, between blogs, between the news. And as dishonest as I believe the news is, you can still inform yourself reading that news, listening to that news. You just have to be able to understand the difference between fact and opinion. And more importantly, you have to be able to understand the big picture, right? When a news event happens, there can be 30 different headlines from 4 different perspectives, okay? I haven't mapped it out, maybe more than 4. Usually there's only 2 that really gain any traction. But when Trump does something, some of these headlines are going to be Trump is a genius, Trump is a patriot, Trump is brilliant, thank goodness for Trump. And then there's going to be a lot of headlines that say Trump is an idiot, Trump is dangerous, Trump is the worst, Trump is literally Hitler plus Stalin as conjoined twins. And you have to be able to read the news and watch the news and listen to the news and understand that you're hearing bias and not let the bias affect you, okay? You have to be able to be like, oh, they're trying to make me hate Trump. I'm going to ignore that part and I'm just going to listen to the facts. All right? Or they're trying to make me love Trump and I'm going to ignore that and I just want the information. All right? And that's the world you live in. It is exhausting to be a centrist because when the news happens, I don't have the luxury of just listening to the news and then taking to Twitter and supporting it or condemning it. I don't have that option. When the news happens, I'm like, great. Now I have to find out what really happened. You know what I mean? I have to weed through all of this. I have to weed through the lies, the bias, the agendas. And you do too. Here's the thing. If enough people become centrists, if everybody would become centrists, it will reach a point where there's going to be at least 1 or 2 news organizations who decide that the most reasonable thing for them to do is to start being honest. That's going to be the most reasonable thing. When enough of the audience is skeptical, somebody, even if it's a whole new news outlet that doesn't exist yet, somebody is going to say, you know what, it's time for an honest news organization that doesn't lie, mislead, manipulate, give the news through a prism of bias. And that's what we need to do. We need to have enough people become skeptical. And you should become skeptical, okay? There's no one organization that always has your best wishes in their heart, okay? There's no car... You name me any car company, and there's a point in their history where they made bad cars. Audi had a point where their cars were not considered to be very good. Ferraris had problems, Toyotas had a couple bumps, Honda, everybody. Ford, all the car makers. There is a period of time where they did not make good cars, and you had to go get another car. Or you could be loyal. You could be loyal and you could buy one of those cars, but if you're honest, you know you're not getting the best car for your money. You know you're not getting something that's the most reliable or the most stylish or has the best fuel economy or the best capabilities. And that's fine if you want to be loyal to a car maker, but here's the thing. You can't be loyal to a political party who is lying, misleading, manipulating, or flat out engaging in bad policies. So it's unrealistic for everybody to be centrist, but here's the thing, and let's wrap this up. Right now, when CNN puts out what is honestly fake news, I hate to be a meme at this point and say it, but it's true, they put out fake news. So when CNN puts out fake news, they have enough people who believe it and run with it and will literally march in the street over it. Literally. In the street, thousands at a time. They're going to keep putting out fake news. If we can make enough people be skeptical that instead of thousands of people, they only get a couple hundred, or that's when we're going to be making progress, all right? You need to be skeptical of everyone. You need to be skeptical of your politicians, of your news sources. You need to be skeptical of everyone. You can't blindly choose a side and be loyal to the side, okay? We're talking about real life consequences. We're not talking about your alma mater. We're not talking about your high school team or your college team or even your local professional sports team. We are talking about things that affect people's lives. We're talking about whether or not people can get married. We're talking about people's health care. We're talking about whether or not people can afford to buy a house. We are talking about huge things. You do not have the luxury of not being skeptical. It is amoral to not be skeptical. You are wrong if you're not skeptical. You need to be skeptical. And I don't mean a skeptic, because if there's a skeptic community out there, and if you haven't, that's its own thing. And to be honest with you, they've made some very good points, that skeptic community, but I'm not saying you necessarily have to join that community, but you do have to be skeptical, all right? You do have to hold people accountable too. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Fox News or CNN or if it's a newspaper. I don't care. And that's another thing. Did you know that the Washington Post is owned by the guy who owns Amazon? And he is a really left-wing dude. You have to understand that who owns the news. You have to understand who's writing the paychecks. You have to understand the agendas that these people have. And you have to hold everyone accountable. And when they put out fake news or when they lie or when they mislead us and manipulate us. I mean, again, look at Charlottesville. We get manipulated to the point that we're fighting each other in the streets. We're beating each other in the streets. And it's all manipulation. This is not organic. This is not an organic thing that's happening. This is all of us being lied to and manipulated to the point that we're willing to beat each other in the street or drive a car into a group of people, which, important thing here, do we yet know why the guy did it? Is there an interview? Is there a recorded testimony of what was going through his mind at the time? When he left Ohio, was he like, you know what, I'm going to run people down? Or did he just get really mad and decide to run people down? Or is there any room at all for it to be an accident? I'm being serious. Could he have panicked? Could he have had a panic attack? Was he medicated and maybe he shouldn't have been behind the wheel? Do we know what's happened yet? And that's the thing, you gotta be skeptical. I'm perfectly willing to believe that he was Nazi trash and a murderer. 100% willing to believe that. However, to do my due diligence, I do have to wait until I know all the facts, and we don't yet know all the facts. And that's the thing, as human beings, we want to jump to a conclusion. And I'll be honest with you, it's a lot of mental energy to wait till you have all the facts. It is so much easier to just file things away. It is so much easier to just side with your team, side against the other team, and just jump to a conclusion and get it over with. It's exhausting. It is exhausting to worry about all the facts and to weigh them out and analyze them and rationalize and be like, all right, well, what solution are we going to go with this time? Is it the more left-leaning one or the right-leaning one? Or it just sucks the life out of you. It really does. I wish I had a team. I do. I wish I had a team, but I don't. And all of the things that I laid out in this video are why. Okay? I have not found a team yet that is consistently honest and consistently choosing the correct solutions to the problems that we have. So I'll be talking about these things. Centrism, it's a necessary evil. I don't even know if it's fair to call it evil, but it's necessary, and more people should actually take part in it. All right. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you found this video useful. Please like, subscribe, and all that stuff, and have yourself an excellent day. All right. Peace out.